Hello and welcome to the MarineAndReef.com budget tank build series. Today we're going to supplement this tank. Now you may be asking, supplement, what's that? Well, basically inside our aquarium we now have both fish and corals, and as the corals in particular start to grow, to build their bodies they're going to suck elements out of the water. And as they suck them out, we're going to need to put them back in so that they can continue to grow. In our previous video on testing, we talked about measuring alkalinity. This is generally the best proxy as to when the trace elements start to drop. So I know that when we started this tank and with freshly mixed water, we have an alkalinity of about 7.5. And in our most recent test, I'm seeing 6.8 DKH alkalinity in this tank, which means the corals have sucked that out. It could also be things like snails or some coralline algae or other invertebrates in the tank. But regardless of exactly which animal it is, we're seeing those levels drop as the animals in the tank take the elements out of the water and build it into their bodies. Now when it comes to supplementing your tank, there's a few different ways of doing it, as well as a few different things to supplement. The two most important things are calcium and alkalinity. And that's because calcium and alkalinity together make up calcium carbonate, which is the building blocks of anything calcium based in the tank, whether it's a clam shell, a snail shell, or a coral skeleton. So we tend to need to supplement calcium and alkalinity at the same time. The second most important to those calcium and alkalinity is magnesium. Magnesium is consumed by corals, and probably more importantly, if your magnesium level is off, then you cannot put calcium and alkalinity in the tank. You'll just keep pouring it in and they'll precipitate out and the levels will not go up. So there's a few different ways of supplementing calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Probably the most popular today is you can buy individual bottles of calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium, dose them all separately, test them all separately. That works perfectly fine. You can also use a calcium reactor that basically melts old coral skeletons, and then as those coral skeletons melt, it puts all the calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium that they once consumed back into the tank. You could also use Kalkwasser, which is a 1-part calcium and alkalinity supplement that you'd then add a separate magnesium to. But on our build today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to use a new type of additive, and that is a 1-part solution. So for many, many, many years of me keeping reef aquariums, this kind of product didn't exist. Now we're seeing it from a few brands. And the one we're going to use is this Fauna Marin Ready2Reef. This is one supplement that includes calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, and a whole bunch of other trace elements. And what makes this supplement unique is in the past, nobody made anything like this because if you tried combining them, they would just precipitate out into solids and you'd have no liquid to dose to the tank anymore. What allows this one to be dosed to the tank is there's actually not alkalinity in this bottle, but when you add this bottle to the tank, the bacteria process it and produce carbonate or alkalinity as a byproduct. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this 1-part solution, which is very simple, and you only have one thing to dose, and you should be able to just monitor the alkalinity and everything should stay in balance because they move proportionally as you dose it to the tank. Without any further ado, we're going to show you guys how we dose this to the tank, explain how often we dose, and how to make sure you're dosing the right amount. All right, so we got our Ready2Reef ready to dose, and we're going to start adding some to the tank. Now on the back label, there is a recommended dose for Ready2Reef. But one thing to keep in mind with any of these calcium, alkalinity, or trace element substances is really what we want is to keep the tank parameters balanced and at the proper level. So if we had a whole bunch of coral, they would suck a whole bunch of calcium and alkalinity, and we need to dose a lot of this stuff. Whereas if we only have a few corals like we do now, we won't need to dose much. Our recommendation is you start with the manufacturer recommended dose, and then you test the next day to see what happened. So for example, in this case, we're going to dose 10 milliliters. We got our measuring cup. This is one of the ones that we include for free with a lot of different additives here at Marine and Reef. Then we're going to test to see what happened when we added the recommended dose. How much did it boost it up? So in this case, we're going to go ahead and dose 10 milliliters. The recommended dose is 5 milliliters per 26 gallons. This is a 55-gallon tank. So that's just about the correct dose. We're just gonna pour it in. When you pour it in, you wanna pour it into a place of high water flow so that it helps it dissolve. So we have a pump on this right corner. I'm just gonna kind of pour it right in front of the pump. Swish out my measuring cup. And that's that. Now, normally we could go ahead and test our alkalinity in an hour or so if we were using a different kind of additive. But because this Ready2Reef produces alkalinity through a biological process, I'm gonna wait until tomorrow. That way it can go through the aquarium, the bacteria can process it, and we should see the alkalinity increase in the morning. Tomorrow morning, if we started at alkalinity of what I tested, which was 7.2 DKH, and I start to see 7.3, I know it increased by 0.1, then I have a much better idea of how much I need to dose. What you wind up doing in the long run is you determine, hey, I'm gonna dose 2 milliliters every day. And then once a week you'll test, and if the number starts to go down, you need to dose a little bit more, and if the number starts to go up, you need to dose a little bit less. But with this kind of supplement, you really are best doing daily small doses. And as you see, not that much work. When you feed your fish, you just pour a little bit of it in as well. Hopefully you like what you saw in this video. Hopefully it gave you an idea of a very simple way to add all the trace elements with one solution. You now know how to dose it. Again, just check to see if the numbers are increasing over time, then you should back off your daily dose. If they're decreasing, you need to increase it. And then you can keep your parameters stable and have a happy, healthy reef aquarium. If you like this video, like and subscribe. There's more to come. We're gonna customize the filter media, keep adding more and more corals, and you're gonna see this reef tank come along.